Resistance, resistance, resistance. Peace, people. How y'all doing? Yes, we are back in the building with your boy, Juice Runner. And this is politics as usual. Old Jork Gritty. Hey, don't forget to check out my book, Street Skelzy, Knock 'em Out the Box. You know, it's on Amazon and other platforms. As well, if you want to support the channel, check out Some Junkies Apparel. That's social media junkies. So me. Right? Okay. So we up in here. Oh. I'm right now, okay, if anybody knows, I use a thing called voice mod, right? And so I usually use the clean, which is this, and I'm about to put it on now. Now this is the clean version, right? And then they just added another one, what I'm doing now, which is called voice enhancer. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm just listening to it now. I'm just putting this there. I haven't got a chance. I just noticed it. So I put it on just to see how it was. I'm gonna take it off for now. When I go and listen to this audio, I'll know that it's in the beginning, and then I can just see if I like the sound, and from there. Also, don't know where my goddamn mic guard is at, so it shit is ticking me off. Pardon the cursing. All right. Now we left off with the aftermath of the gunpowder plot. Right. That's how we ended it off. Right. So we're about to get into King James and the Parliament. Even though it says division amongst, English Catholics, that's what it was all about, the gunpowder plot. So I'm come over here real quick, change my header. All right. Edit this, go to the header, and I'm put in King in Parliament. All right, so we're gonna copy this, paste it over here, as y'all can see. All right. I will be doing a show on my programs that I use, because I wanted to give an update, as far as how it's been since I started using it. So I wanted to give like a product review. I really don't do that too much, but I really feel that they deserve it. All of the people that I've actually been using. All right. So now we're gonna put this up inside the ticker. Pardon me real quick. All right. Put that in there. All right. So we're gonna slide over to the other page. All right. So we in here. All right. So it's King and Parliament. Right. It's the main article, Kings won England and the English Parliament. Right. It says the cooperation between monarch and parliament following the gunpowder plot was atypical. Instead, it was the previous sessions of 1604 that shaped the attitudes of both sides. Pardon me, I'm hearing too much in my ear. Both sides to rest. Wait. Both sides of the rest of the region. Though the initial difficulties owed more to mutual incomprehensions than conscious enmities. Right. On the 2nd or the 7th of July, 1604, James had angrily prologued Parliament after failing to win support either in full union or financial subsidies. I will not think where I feel no thanks due, he had remarked in his closing speech. I am not such a stock as a praise fool. You see how many things you did not well. I wish you would make use of your liberty with more modesty in time to come. All right. King James is on some shit. You know what I mean? Like, this is why the Freemasons is working to turning him into a god. While, the Scottish Rite, you know. As James' reign progressed, the government faced growing financial pressures, partly due to creeping inflation, but also to the proficiency and financial incompetence of James's court. In February 1610, Salisbury proposed a scheme known as the Great Contract. We're gonna be covering this. They have a little bit here, but we're going to be covering this as well, whereby Parliament, in return for 10 royal concessions, would grant a lump sum of £600,000 to pay off the king's debt, plus an annual grant of £200,000 to ensure prickly negotiations became so practiced that James eventually lost patience and dismissed Parliament on the 31st of December, the 10th of 1610. Right? Your greatest error, he told Salisbury, hath been that ye ever expected to draw honey out of the gall. The same pattern was repeated with the so-called Alderden Parliament in 1614, which James dissolved after a mere 9 weeks when the Commons hesitated to grant him the money he required. James then ruled without Parliament until 1621, employing officials such as the merchant Leon Cranfield, who was astute in at raising and saving money for the crown, and so the Baronet and other dignities many created for the purpose, and an alternate source of income. All right, so James is like, look, if you ain't rolling with me, I don't need you. You don't got no voice. You're dead. Get out of here. We'll try this again when you're ready to act right. Right. Another potential source of income was the prospect of the Spanish dowry from a marriage between Charles, Prince of Wales, and Infanta Marie and Anna of Spain. The policy of the Spanish match, and as it was called, was so attractive to James as a way to maintain peace with Spain and avoid an additional cost of a war. Peace could be maintained as effectively by keeping the negotiations alive as the communicating the match. Consummating the match, which may explain why James protected the negotiation for almost a decade. Protracted. I thought I'm over here. You know what I'm saying? Where we at? Okay. So you see right here, this is picture, portrait by, whoever in the background, whatever. So here we go. It goes, the policies was supported by the Howards and other Catholic-leaning ministers and diplomats, together known as the Spanish Party, but deeply distrusted the Protestant England and distrusted in Protestant England. When Sir Walter Raleigh was released from imprisonment in 1616, he embarked on a hunt for gold in South America, with strict instructions from James not to engage the Spanish. You can go look for your gold. We already know about the Spanish conquistadors and all of that going and looking for the gold, right? So he's like, listen, don't go over there fucking with them people. Right? Expedition was disastrous failure, and his son Walter was killed fighting the Spanish. On Riley's return to England, James had him executed, and the indigents of the public who opposed the appeasement of Spain, meaning that they didn't feel that he was representing his people by defending the Spaniards, right? Um, There he goes. James had him, and okay, James' policies was further jeopardized by the outbreak of the 30-Year War. We'll be getting into that. Now, that's very important. Okay, the 30-Year War, especially after his Protestant son-in-law, Frederick V, Elector Palatine, was ousted from Bohemia by the Catholic Emperor Ferdinand II in 1620. Right? Now, remember Bohemian Grove, right? So you hear Bohemia, you understand they set up a group, Bohemia Grove. This is based on this information. When they set up how they operate is based on past events and paying homage to certain areas, right? By the Catholic, right? The Spanish troops simultaneously invaded Frederick's Rhineland home territory. Matters came to a head when James finally called a parliament in 1621 to fund a military expedition to support his son-in-law. The Commons, on the one hand, granted subsidies and equities to finance serious military operations in aid of Frederick, and the other, remembering the profits gained under Elizabeth, was naval attack on Spanish gold shipments, called for the war directly against Spain. In November 1621, rules by Sir Edward Coke, they framed a petition asking for only for war with Spain, but not for Prince Charles to marry a Protestant, and for enforcement of the anti-Catholic laws. James flatly told them not to interfere in matters of royal progressive, my fault, royal prerogatives, or they would risk punishment, which provoked them into issuing a statement protesting their rights, including freedom of speech, urged on the Duke of Buckingham and the Spanish ambassador Gondomar. James ripped the protest out of the record books and dissolved Parliament. Oh, shit. James on his shit, you know what I'm saying? Gotta remember, this is the guy that put the Bible in your hands. I'm just explaining why. I'm explaining to you why it was put in your hands. Well, the white people's hands. Why they put it in our hands is a totally different story. All right. In early 1623, Prince Charles, now 22, and Buckingham decided to seize the initiative to travel to Spain incognito to win the infantry directly, but the mission proved to be ineffectively mistake. The infantry detested Charles, and the Spanish confronted them with the terms that included to repel of anti-Christian litigations by Parliament. The Spanish, they was pushing, the Catholic. So, they like, nah. But this is what it is. Though the treaty was signed, the prince and duke returned to England in October without the infantry and immediately renounced the treaty. Now they basically sound like there was a depression. While you was there, you thought that they was gonna rock your ass, so you cooperated. And the minute you got out of there, that's when you found your nuts, right? Much of where we at infantry and immediately renounced the treaty, much to the delight of the British people. Disillusional by the visit to Spain, Charles and Buckingham now turned James' Spanish policy upon its heads and called for the French match in a war against the Habsburg Empire. The rise, the raise of necessity finances, they prevailed upon James to call another parliament, which met in February 1624. All right. For once, the outpouring of anti-Catholic sentiment in the Commons were echoed in court, where control of policy was shifted from James to Charles and Buckingham, who pressured the king to declare war and engineered the impeachment of Lord Treasurer Leon Cranfield, by now made Earl of Middlesex, when he opposed, checking the time here, when he opposed the plan on grounds of cost. The outcome of the Parliament of 1624 was ambiguous. James still refused to declare or fund a war, but Charles believed the Commons had committed themselves to finance a war against Spain, a stance that was contributed to his problems with Parliament in his own reign. You know, James didn't care about religion. All of those religions, I mean, from we'll be getting into James in a minute, right? So I'm not going to speak on it until we get there. That way we could all conclude whether I'm imagining this or, is history imagining this at the same time, right? You know, his history, like I told you, his mom's, being ousted, basically, on the run. They started a union, so this is how the system works, people. I'm showing you Freemasonry at its best. You know what I'm saying? At its best. Like where we at? Okay. We got a minute and 50. Where we at? Obtained. Any that will be quiet and give but an outward. No, we read that already, right? A law, Pendleton. Okay, in the petition of 1603, the Puritan clergy demanded the abolishment and confirmation wedding rings and the term priest, among other things, and the wearing of caps and surplice becomes optional. Right? Okay, so wait, or did I jump too? I think I jumped too early, right? Nah, or did I not? Um, Eclectic sentiment. Okay, declared war. So no. Okay, we're in. Okay, yes, king and church, right? So we did king and parliament. So okay, now let's go into my fault. King and church. All right. Bring this back up. Change my headlines for y'all. All right. Then change this little ticker real quick. Hold on. Let's start from right here. Grab that for you. This is just really for whoever might, just be popping in, and they don't, you want them to at least have a little part of where you at. All right. Okay. Close you up. Okay. Had to grab me some Keebler cookies. I don't know if you know the Sundays. Well, I like the Sundays. Sundays, Sandy's shortcakes. Well, it's shortbread, but I like the ones with the pecans in it. I'm not giving them any advertisement anyway. So here we go. All right. Okay. Mm-hmm. Let's get back into this. Okay. It goes. After the gunpowder plot, James sanctioned harsh measures to control English Catholics. In May of 1606, Parliament passed the Popish Recusant Act, which could require any citizen to take an oath of allegiance. See right there? See that right there? Oath of allegiance. Pay attention. Denying the Pope authority over the king. All right? So we know Freemasonry, we know that it was it goes against, right, Christianity. It tells you Christianity is no good and this, that, and the third. If you know that if you've been around and you know the woke community, you know how they can point to the Bible and make it seem like, oh, it's this and it's that. These are the people who set that up. All right. It says, which could require any citizens to take an oath of allegiance, denying the Pope's authority over the king. Okay? James was counselor towards the Catholics who took the oath of allegiance, right? And tolerated crypto-Catholicism, which crypto-Catholicism even at court. You got to look into that too. We're going to touch on that. Henry Howard, for example, was a crypto-Catholic, received back into the Catholic Church in his final months. On ascending the English throne, James suspected that he might need the support of Catholics in England. So he assured the Earl of Northern land, right, a prominent sympathizer of the old religion, that he would not persecute any that will be quiet and give but an outward obedience to the law. right? A Parliament sympathizer of the old religion, that he would not persecute any that will be quiet and give but in outward order obedience to the law. So whatever you do in the dark, that's your business. But outwardly, just respect the law. All right? Where we at here? So it goes. And the millenary petition of 1603, the Puritan clergy demanded the abolition of confirmation wedding rings and the term priest, among other things. And that would, hold on, wait a minute here. Not bad. All right. I just wanted to get my when I do the ring the numbers, it starts my clock. So that way I can take breaks and stuff like that and just keep everything in a nice order. All right. The abolishing of confirmation wedding rings and the term priest, among other things, in that the wearing of caps and surplice becomes optional. James was strict in enforcing confirmation at first, including the extent of perception, persecution amongst many Puritans, but ejections and superstitions from living became rare as the reign continued. As a result of the Hampton Court conferences of 1604, a new traditional and complications of approved books of the Bibles was commissioned to resolve discrepancies among different translations then being used. Let me bring you out here, okay? You gotta understand what this is saying right here. All right, bring this back a bit. Hold on. All right, so it goes. I just wanted to hold on. Bold this for you. Turn it red. I want y'all to look up the Hampton Court Conference. We will be getting into it, but it's always good to be, ahead of the game, right? Of 1604. A new translation and completion of approved books, approved books of the Bible was commissioned to resolve discrepancies among different translations then being used. In these Bibles, they were not matching. So they came to an agreement which books would be used. That way, everybody could move forward on the same path. That's how you know this was all bogus to begin with. Because if what you saying is real and these are the words of God, and how would you compromising all of this? All right. The authorized King James Version, as this has become known, was completed in 1611 and is considered a masterpiece of Jacobean prose. It is still widespread use. Oh, it is still in widespread use. All right. Understand this. Listen to what it just told you. It's considered a masterpiece of Jacobean prose, right? It is still widespreadly used. Okay. In Scotland, James attempted to bring the Scottish Kirk, so whatever, near. I don't know what this is supposed to be right here. Let's see what they say. Yeah, near. All right. So near as can be to the English church and the reestablished a whatever, man. A policy that met with strong opposition among Presbyterians. Right. James returned to Scotland in 1617 for the only time after his accession in England, in the hopes to implementing angelistic rituals. James Bishop forced his 5 Articles of Perth through the General Assembly the following year, but the rulings were widely resisted. James left the church in Scotland divided at his death, a source of future problems for his son. All right? James left the church in Scotland divided at his death. Understand that. All right. So then we go, yeah, here we go. Now we're going to get into why, the James did what he did. All right. Let's change the title here. All right. See pictures of James there, right? Okay. Throughout his life, James had close relationships with male courtiers, which was caused debates among historians about their exact nature. In Scotland, Anne Murray was known as the king's mistress. After his accession to in England, his peaceful and scholarly attitude contrasted strikingly with the bellicose and ruthless behavior of Elizabeth, and indicated by the contemporary emergence Rex, whatever this is, Elizabeth, it's all in some of the shit I don't even speak. Elizabeth was king, now James is queen. Basically, that's what they was saying, right? That, right? That what? Elizabeth was king, and James was the queen. You see a lot of these hand-picked men. You know what I'm saying? You know them. You know what I mean? Where, you knew that off the rip, they didn't really have, the masculine. You know what I mean? They was, easily controlled. All right. For James, we questioned whether or not, he was a part of the keyboard, the smash keyboard committee. All right. Was James down with the keyboard smash committee? Some of James' biographies concluded that Esme Stewart, later Duke of Lennox, Robert Carr, later Earl of Somerset, and George Villeray, later Duke of Buckingham, were his lovers. Right? Um, remember, Freemasonry is set up to go against all of these rules, right? Remember, he established, demonology in its common form. You might look at Alex de Corley and these people, but nah. This is where it starts from, right? Not where it starts, but where this part of it starts from and continues on. So he did not have no value in the church. You know what I mean? He was placed in there, and so I guess this is what they concluded from him, right? Sir John Oglander observed that he never yet saw any fond husband make so much of so great dalliance over his beautiful spouse as I have seen King James over his favorite, I'm assuming favorites, especially the Duke of Buckingham, whom the king would recall Sir Edward Peyton, trembled, trembled and kissed as a mistress. Restaurants of I don't know what this is, Palace, right, in Northamptonshire, undertaken in 2004 to 2008, revealed a previous unknown passage linking the bed chambers of James Villiers. Enough said, people. I'm like I said, I can't I wasn't there, so I can't say this is, all factual. But when I seen the Freemasonic connection, right, when I understood who was behind it, right, when I understood, the widow's son, when I even understood, hold on a minute here, right, um, let me pull this up real quick, all right. Pardon me 1 second. I'm about to put something up for you. Amber Heard's lawyer tries to poke holes in Johnny's Depp. Let me send here's the latest. Anyway. Um. Okay. Wait 1 minute. I'll bring this up for you. You already know the symbol, but I just always like to bring it up. Anyway. All right. Make you large here. All right. Okay. So, as I told you, right, this symbol right here is a vagina symbol. All right. Told you, this is a vagina symbol. If you look, you can see, the lips. We got to look from the inside. You can't look from the outside. You got to look inward, right? And so, with knowing this fact, right? Me knowing this fact, that's why I always say, yeah, they fuck boys. That's why they always run around, oh, women is God, and these type of things, you know, to push one agenda while also pushing another one, right? So let's go here again, right? Some biographies of James argue that the relationships were not sexual. James Baskerville Doran listed sodomy among crimes, yet are bound in conscience never to forget, right? Ye are bound, right? Pardon me here, right? Ye are bound in conscience never to forget. Listed, right? Sodomy, right? And James' wife Anne gave birth to 7 live children, as well as suffering 2 stillbirths in at least 3 other miscarriages. Contemporary Hunganet poets Theophilus D. whatever observed that it is well known that the King of England fucks the Duke of Buckingham. Uh, right? See right here. It is well known that the King of England fucks the Duke of Buckingham. I didn't make this up, people. Buckingham himself provides evidence that he slept in the same bed as the king, writing to James many years later that he had pondered, right, whether we at here. Um, oh, here we go. Right. So it goes, whether you love me or love me now better than at the time, which I shall never forget at Fernham, where the bedhead could not be found between the master and his dog. Buckingham's words may be interpreted as non sexual in the context of 17th century court life. The main ambiguous dispute their fondness. Okay, because he's saying that basically in those times, the way people spoke would, you cannot take it in the same way that we would take it in today's time. Whatever. Okay. Right. Whatever. Buckingham's words may be interpreted as non sexual in the context of the 17th century court life, right? And remain ambiguous despite their fondness. It is also possible that James was bisexual, all right? Get this shit out of here, all right? Okay. When the Earl of Cecilbury died in 1612, he was little mourned by those who jostled to fill the power vacuum. Until Salisbury's death, the Elizabethan administrative system over which he had presided continue to function with relative efficiency. From this time forward, James' government entered a period of decline and disrupt. Salisbury passing gave James the notion of governing in person as his own chief minister of state, with his young Scottish favorite Robert Carr carrying out many of Salisbury's former duties. By James' inability to attend closely to official business, exposed the government to factionalism, right? Howard's party consisted of Nottingham, Schofield, right, son-in-law Lord, right, and Charles Howard Earl, along with Sir Thomas Lee. Some took control of much of the government and its um, patronage. My fault. Even the powerful Carr fell into the Howard camp, hardly experienced for the responsibility thrusted upon him, and often depended on his intimate friends, Sir Thomas Overbury, for assistance with government papers. Carr had an adulterous affair with France Howard, courtier Countess of Countess, okay, of Essex. Frances Howard, Countess of Essex, daughter of the Earl of Suffield, who James assisted by securing an annulment of her marriage to free her to marry Carr. Right? In the summer of 1615, however, it emerged in that Overbury had been poisoned. He had died on the 15th of September 1613 in the Tower of London, where he had been placed at the king's request. Among those convicted of the murder were France and Robert Carr, the latter having been replaced as the king's favorite in the meantime by Valier. James pardoned France and committed card sentenced to death, eventually pardoning him in 1624. The implication of the king in such a scandal provoked much public and literary conjectures and irreparable tarnished James Court with an image of corruption and depravity. The subsequent downfall of the Howard left villainous unchallenged at the supreme figure in the government by 1619. When I read this, I always think about um King David, like how when he wanted to get with the with like his one of his like main generals' wives, he like sent them out, to war, but he made sure where he sent them he would be killed so that way he could get the wife. That's how I always look at this, that little scenario right there. For me. You know what I mean? That's just a me thing. You know what I mean? Okay, so we back. It's politics as usual. Oh, Joe Gritty. Your boy Juice Wanna. Let me put my book up there real quick. As you see the book right here. And then we can go on. Social media junkies. Much love, much love. All right. Let's slide over here. Okay. And we go health and death. All right. We're going to keep all of that under the personal relationship section. I just really wanted to focus on that and show you the intentions of, Freemasonry with all of the things that lie behind it is levels. All right. This is the motive. I showed you the operation inside the workhouse, the tool shed. All right. This is the motive, which behind it all. Right? In his later years, James suffered increasingly from arthritis, gout, and kidney stones. He also lost his teeth and drank heavily. The king was often seriously ill during the last years of his life, leaving him an increasingly parochial figure, rarely able to visit London, while Buckingham consolidated his control to Charles to ensure his own future. One theory is that James suffered from porphyria, I don't know what that is, a disease in which his descendants, George III of the United Kingdom, exhibited some symptoms. James described his urine to physicians Theodore as being the dark red color of Acrian wine. Wow. The theory is dismissed by some experts, particularly in James' case, because he had kidney stones, which can lead to bleeding in the urine and coloring of red. Okay. In early 1625, James was plagued to serve severe attack of arthritis, gout, and fainting fits, and fell seriously ill in March with, I don't know what that is, and then, this is, I'll let y'all see it there, right? um, and then suffered a stroke. He died at Thurbold House in Hertfordshire. It's my duty to butcher y'all, okay? Don't expect me to get this English shit correct, all right? I have no intentions on saying places I don't give two shits about correctly. That's y'all own that. I don't give two shits about saying it right, right? On the 27th of March, during a violent attack of diphtheria, with Buckingham at his side, James' funeral on the 7th of May was a magnificent but disorderly affair. Bishop John Williams of Lincoln preached the sermon observing King Solomon died in a peace when he had lived after 60 years. And so, you know, did the King James. The sermon was later printed in Great Britain's Salomon. Understand, remember when I just told you um how they, see in this one he's comparing him to King Solomon. And if you know anything about King Solomon's temple, and you would understand if when I did the show on Naamah, which was the wife of King Solomon, which was a demon and gave birth to a demon child. We'll be getting all into that as well again. But there's so much, like, so I put everything in sections so that way it's easier to engulf it. Because if this right here is all King James and that stuff. The demonology I put in a different section, so all of these things will line up when you understand them. But if I did it all at one time, I would always keep drifting off and never stay on a path, because that's how intricate this system is. You know what I mean? So the sermon later, okay, James was buried in Westminster Abbey. The position of the tomb was lost, right? The position of the tomb was lost for many years until his lead coffin was found in the Henry Fifth vault during the excavation in the 19th century, right? What it says. The position of the tomb was lost for many years until his lead coffin was found in the Henry VII vault. Right? So let's get into his legacy. This is all still personal relationships and all of that stuff. I'm not even going to change the title for him. Right? James was widely mourned for all his flaws. He had largely retained an affection of his people, who had enjoyed uninterrupted peace and competitive low taxations during the Jacobean era, as lived in peace, remarked the Earl of Kiley. So did he die in peace, and pray God of our King Charles serves a reckless military expedition. And I think it skips some. Okay, it goes let me put this here. Right? So it goes. As he lived in peace, remarked Earl of Kiklo, whatever, right? So did he die in peace, right? Put you there, right? Okay. So did he die in peace, and I pray God, our King Charles may follow him. Earl's prayer prayed in vain. Once in power, Charles and Buckingham sanctioned a series of reckless military expeditions that ended in humiliating failure. James had often neglected, right, the business of government for leisure pastimes such as the hunt. His later dependence on favorites. Let me see. Favorites. Where we at the scandal written court undermined the respected image and of monarchy so carefully constructed by Elizabeth. Right? So when he came in, James, he wasn't built like that. That's just why, they trying to, put the females in a certain position, right? And European, apparently, the women did better jobs than the men. So all of the stuff that you see, a lot of the slave men, everything you see, don't exit these women out of the deal, man. That's what I'm telling you. All right? Under James, the plantation of Ulster, right, by English and Scots Protestants began, and the English colonizations of America started in course with the foundation of Jamestown, Virginia in 1607. All right. We're gonna touch on this one too. All right, the plantation of Ulster. All right, but I just wanna I should have just highlighted the whole thing. Okay. Okay. Turn this whole thing here. All right. So it says the English and Scots Protestants began, and the English colonists in North America started its course with the foundation of Jamestown, Virginia in 1607. The Cooper's Cave, Newfoundland in 1610. During the next 150 years, England would fight with Spain, the Netherlands, and France to control the continent. While religious divisions in Ireland between the Protestants and Catholics has lasted over 400 years by actively pursuing more than just a personal union in his realm. He helped lay the foundation for the utility British state. Unitary, I don't know what that's supposed to be. Unitary British states. According to a tradition, orientating the anti-Stuart historian of the mid-17th century, James' taste for political abolishments, his financial irresponsibilities, and his cultivation of unpopular favorites established the foundation of the English Civil War. James bequested Charles a fatal belief in the divine right of kings. Pardon me here. All right. All right. So it says here, favorites established the foundation of the Civil War. James bequested Charles a fatal belief in the divine rights of king, combined with the disdain of Parliament, which culminated the execution of Charles I and the abolition of the monarch. So James' stupidity, right, led his son to be more stupid, And then they just said, you know what, man, we just gonna take this the way we take it. The people just gonna have to rule us because y'all dudes don't know what y'all doing. Um, over the last 3 years, hundred over the last 300 years, the king's reputation has suffered from an acid description of him by Sir Anthony Weldon, whom James had sacked and who wrote treaties on James in the 1650s. Other influential anti-James historians written during the 1650s included Sir Howard Payton, divine catastrophe of the kingly family in the House of Stuarts, Arthur Williams. These are the people in the books that they have written, right? Biography continued much of his hostility. In the words of historian John Werben, Williams' books was an astonishing spectacle of work whose every page proclaimed its author's increasing hatred for his subject. Since William, however, the stability of James' government in Scotland in the early part of the English reign, as well as his relatively enlightened views on religion and war, have earned him a re-electable form from many historians who have rescued his reputation from the tradition of criticism. Basically, you got, like I said, you got the Scottish Rite. So, they here to clean his name up, and do what they do. You'll understand as we go on. I'm sorry if I'm messing up today. It's kind of hot in here. You know what I mean? Can't blame it on the weed. I haven't smoked in almost 2 weeks now. I believe it's like 2 weeks. All right. Representatives of the New Historical Perspective and the 2003 biography by Pauline Croft reviewed John Grisham's summary, her findings. Croft's overall assessment of James is apparently mixed. She recognizes his good intentions in matters like the Anglo-Scottish Union, his openness to different points of views in his agenda to a peaceful foreign policy within his kingdom financial means. His actions moderate fractions between his divided peoples. Yet, he also created new ones, particularly by supporting colonization that polarized the crown's interest groups in Ireland, obtaining insufficient political benefits for his open-handed patronage, and unfortunate lack of attention in the image of monarchy, particular after the image observed regime of Elizabeth, right? Particularly after the image observed regime of Elizabeth. Here we go. All right. So, pursuing a pro-Spanish foreign policy that fired religious prejudice and opened the door to Armenians, Armenians within the English church, and enforcing unpalatable religious changes on the Scottish Kirk. Many of these criticisms are framed within a longer view of James' reign, including the legacy now understood to be more troubled, which left Charles the One. Right? So, it's at the end there was really just little parts that I just wanted to read. I'm not even sure if I want to go anymore. And I think there's some stuff in here I wanted to bring up. In Scotland, James the Sixth, King of Scotland. Until 1604, he was proclaimed James the First, King of England, France, and Ireland, defending of the faith. In London on the 24th of March, 1603, on the 20th of October 1604, James issued a proclamation at Westminster, changing his style to King of Great Britain, France, and Ireland, defending the faith and company. The style was not used on English statues, but was used on proclamation, coinage, letters, treaties, and in Scotland. Right. So this is why they hold him so dear. James styled himself King of France, a line which other monarchs in England in line with other monarchs in England between 1304 and 1809 or 01, although he did not actually rule France. Right? Arms. Right? As King of Scotland, James bore an accent royal arms of Scotland, or a lion ramped gules armed and languedazar within double treasure. This is just the this right here, right? So what they talking about inside this is, these symbols, right? How they got them lined up. Hold on. Maybe I have to bring you over a bit. Oh, no. Okay. Nonetheless, so we're gonna end that right there. Cause like I said, I didn't really want to get into that. I want to go over to. Wait a minute here. Now what's the other part? Because now we're going into him, right? We're going into these bills and laws that were passed, and that's where it matters. Matter of fact, I'll probably end this. Okay. So, in this right here, we get a chance to see James. Right? We get a chance to see, or at least catch up with the things that was behind him, right? The gay references and all of that. We get to see why he would set up the demonology and these type of things, right? He himself was not with that stuff on either side. You know what I'm saying? So he was really oppressive when it came to the people. He goes into, let's get into, this is what I'll touch on. All right. Let's go into this right here. Hold on. So first we'll touch on this for you. All right. Let's, you know what? I'll just put it right here. So we're going to touch on the Great Contract. All right, slide over here. Oh. What's this? What are you still there for? Take that down. All right. So let's go into the Great Contract. The Great Contract was a plan submitted by James in Parliament on in 1610 by Robert Cecil. Right, it was an attempt to increase crown income and utilities rid the bill. Cecil suggested that in return for an annual, we covered this, but this is going to give you a little bit more. Right, should be given up its feudal rights of worship and provisions, as well as the power of creating new impositions. And plans was eventually rejected by both James and Parliament. The failure of the Cashier project was thought by some to have hastened Cecil's early death in 1612, although it is most likely that he died of cancer. The king withdrew from the contract because it meant that he would lose the youthful means of controlling his more powerful subjects. He also did not think £200,000 was a worthy substitute for his feudal right. A House of Commons withdrew because they were weary of providing an income that might give the king financial independence, right? Whether it would have helped the financial institution remained a matter of speculation. It has been argued that the financial statements of the restoration of Charles II was partially inspired by the Great Contract. On the other hand, James I was rather extravagant in financial matters, and it is uncertain whether the contract would have been a permanent solution to of his difficulties. And it is also important to consider how, at the point of Elizabeth's death, the crown was £400 in debt. Considering that Elizabeth ran a rather frugal court and was careful with money, and thus the financial problems of James' reign were not all of his own making. Furthermore, it must also be said that James, who had a wife in by 1605 four children to support, had many legitimate expenses within in which the unmarried and childless Elizabeth did not. Okay, so you say that the women are expensive. All right, so what else we had up there? Which one was it? The Adlers. No, let's see here. I want to just pull up some stuff along the way while we just sitting around, shooting the breeze and whatnot. Charles Peach Wells. What we at? There was something else that I wanted to Walter Reign. 30-Year War. Now, if we get into the 30-Year War, we're not going to be able to cover this all right now. This is impossible to do. Wait, hold on. Excuse me. All right. So the 30-Year War, right, is a big war. So this is what we will be coming back with on the next show. We'll be just covering the 30-Year War because, like I said, it's big. This is, and it matters. This matters a lot because as you understand the religious aspects, right? The 30-Year War was about the religious war, basically. So, right, 30-Year War took place largely within the Holy Roman Empire, right? So this is Rome, going at it, right? So we will be covering that on the next one. This is what we will be ending off with, I could come with some other stuff, but the thing is, I like always going in a pattern. So I'm going through this, seeing if I can pull up some of the um some of the smaller, subjects. All right, here, let me just see if I can pull up anything else. Um, we can do the popish, right? We concession act. Hold on a minute here. Pardon me. Let's see, because I believe this one it should be small. Yes. All right. See, a lot of them I know. Like I said, I've read it myself, so it's really not nothing for me to bring up for you. I'll put it down here. All right. Paste this in there. Right. The Popish Recusant Act. Recusant Act. Right. 1605. Right, was an act of parliament in England which quickly followed the gunpowder plot of the same year, an attempt by English Roman Catholics to assassinate King James. So this is why you understand the 30-year war, right? Because they really had a problem with them, right? And many of the parliament. The acts forbid Roman Catholics from participating in practicing the professions of law in medicine, from acting as a guardian or trustee, right? I need you to understand that. All right. It says the Roman Act forbidden Roman. Let me make sure you can see this here. All right. Okay. So the act forbade Roman Catholics from practicing the professions of law in medicine and from acting as a guardian or trustee. And it allows magistrates to search their houses for arms. All right. So the cops can just run up in your, basically they were cops. So the cops could run up in your spot like, yo, and check to see if you got any weapons. The act also provided a new oath of allegiance, right? Which denied the power of the Pope, right? To dispose monarchs, right? Hold on here. Put you there, right? The recantant was to be fined £60 or to fortify or forfeit 2/3 of his land if he did not receive a sacrament in the Lord's Supper at least once a year in his Church of England parish church. All right? So understand what was going on here. I'll put some red on you. All right? Okay. Was to be fined £60 or to forfeit 2/3 of his land if they did not receive a sacrament of the Lord's Supper at least once a year in his Church of England parish church. The act also made it high treason to obey authority of Rome rather than the king. Do you see this here? Right? The act also made it high treason to obey the authority, right? Where's that? Of Rome rather than the king. Separation of church and state. The church, y'all do your thing over there. We doing our thing over here. This is why I always say, nah, I'm not woke. You know what I'm saying? Even though I don't subscribe to religion, I'm not a person that goes against the rules of that system, if that makes sense. Like, okay, the book is only a structure of how society is set up, right? So, there's certain principles and laws that I agree with. I agree with, certain things are not appropriate and shouldn't be, approved of. But we're in a time when all of that is up for, not even up for debate, it's just happening. Right. So this system that you seeing from the 1600s, 400 years ago, is the system that took its time to build up to be here now. Right? We understand the pledge of allegiance, and we understand that, we have a system that's separating church and state. We understand that we have a Freemasonic order that does not agree with the church, but knows all of the little ins and out of the Bible because they designed it. They designed it. So then when it was time to make the mental fight, we're just puppets in their war. This is why I personally step away from any religious association. People be like, oh, you must be Muslim. No, not Muslim. Oh, you must be because when I say stuff, in defense of the Bible, things that they just getting wrong, not necessarily defense of the Bible, but in correcting a error or saying something wrong due to the fact of my research, right? Oh, you must be a Christian. Oh, nah. Oh, you an Israelite? Nah. None of that. I don't subscribe to that. I know all of that stuff falls into that Freemasonic system. So even when dudes might be like, "Oh, you in the gang?" I'll be like, "Nah, I've been affiliated." You know what I mean? But that was all due to the fact of understanding maneuvering in a society. Our society is tribal, right? So in this tribal understanding, like me, I've never been a rat. There will never be any paperwork with me on it. I've never been in court, never filed it, never did none of that. You know what I mean? Not to say that um there wouldn't be a situation where I wouldn't have a problem, sending certain assholes to jail, but um definitely not when I was involved with street life. Would I ever even consider that? Because I'm gonna handle you on my own. Anybody who know me know that about me. Like, I'm not even worrying about over here because I will handle that situation if need be. You know what I'm saying? So, um, I always respected that. I always respected certain laws. And because I carried myself with those laws, I was able to go throughout the whole nation, didn't even have to necessarily know people, and was always good. Always knew who to deal with and who to stay away from. And so the most of the time it would stay away from everybody because inside of those circles could be the downfall. Like that person can genuinely, be that. Like the stand up gangster or whatever the case may be, but he's overlooking his circle because he might have built it off of needing people. So he put his brother down. His brother ain't gangster. He got his homeboy in the buildings, from the same building, and so they build it off of this, But everybody, just because you in that building, we ain't in the same household. We don't keep the same mentality. The only good thing about having things within a community is you always up to speed. Like if you know one thing about the mob, you know that everything is inside their circle. They live around, they all around the same people. So if anything go wrong, they know. They know. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, what's her name? Didn't come home. She's calling her. If her husband doesn't come home, she's calling these people over here. So now everybody is alert, right? So on that principles of the lifestyle, I do respect. And since most of the people I've came across, I was an outsider, right? And so I didn't know how it was set up. Who were these people? I never felt comfortable being in around that on a permanent level. You know what I mean? I used to in high school, right? I used to hustle in Philly. Coming from New York, I used to go to Philly and live out there for 3.5 days and stay in New York for like 3.5 days, right? That was why. Meaning that I understood that, yeah, a lot of these people are stand up people, the people I was around. This is shower posse people, right? Understood that. You know what I mean? That a lot of these people are upright and stand up people in their own right. Not saying that in a society sense that you would deem them stand up people, but in the context of criminals, right? These were stand up people. These are not the people that was gonna, you know, right? So these were not the people who were going to um disrespect a code, whatever you call it that, right? So these wasn't the people who was gonna disrespect a certain train of thought. That was pushed in, like you don't tell, you don't do these things, you be upright, buy the little kids ice cream, when the ice cream truck come, you do stuff that you balance out. And when you balance out good enough, your conflicts would be minimum. Because the first people you need to gain, in your corner is the people within your community. I learned that. Okay, let me give you a story, right? Hold on, I'm about to take a break in 30 seconds. I want to tell you this story on understanding that concept. I didn't know it at first. So, like I said, these are the stand up people who schooled me, showed me certain things, and I had to understand. Because at first I was, resistant to anybody is, resistance to what you feeling, you know. We'll be back. Right? So let me tell you this, right? I really don't like telling this type of lifestyle because I don't want it to be promoted in the wrong way. You know what I mean? Because when people hear this, they gravitate to the negative of it and not the positive. So saying I was selling drugs and I was in this type of crew, and you understand what I'm saying? Like that's a bad imagery, especially for the youth. right? Because they don't understand that I was an individual within a group of people. I came and went. I did my thing amongst that group of people. So I never was, like a soldier. I was always an independent contractor. You know what I'm saying? So let me give you this story, right? Okay. So when I first went out there, um, I went out there, selling crack. I hate to say that, but yeah, I was selling crack, right? And so it was a lot of things, going on, and I stayed a solid dude. What happened is I wound up getting incarcerated for a shooting in New York, right? So I did my time and I came back. Now I was about to go to college. You know what I'm saying? It's funny. I was only out of jail for like probably dead ass, no lying. I wasn't even out. Cause I remember my grandmother saying this. She's like, "You wasn't even out like 2 weeks, and you just left." You know what I'm saying? And I went back out to Philly because a friend of mine had got murdered. Right? He was like the last person murdered that year. I forget the year it was, but anyway, I think it was 90. Okay, I think it was 93. No, 92. I think it was at the end of 92, right? Or 93. I think it was, no, because I went to college in 93. So this was the end of 92. At the end of 92, he had got killed, right? And so I went out there, you know, being me. You know what I'm saying? So, dudes try to keep me out of trouble. This is why I say I always, even though I was beefing with dudes, them same people, they was still, like family. So they was like, keep trying to keep me away from that. Like, yo, man, but you know what I mean? Just get this money. Just get this money. So, Danny gave me a store. There's at games in a big ass store, right? This is in South Philly. Now, mind you, they were beefing with, the youth out there. But me, I embrace people. So the same kids that was there, I embraced them. Right? But that's a different story. What happened is there was a church, right? And this is all true. This is all real facts. There was a church, and now me, my deal was I ran the store, right? So anything that's in that store, all me. The weed was Danny. Like Danny owned actually the building, right? Like it was a 3-story building on the bottom. It was a game room. Nobody was up in the other rooms. Like it had like I want to say each floor probably had like 3 apartments or 2 apartments on each floor. You know what I mean? So nobody was using it. I just be in there, but I didn't really utilize it. I just stayed on the bottom. Um, Nonetheless, it was the church people. And he would come like he was like this is a mandatory thing. Like he wasn't up for debate. You know what I'm saying? And I was trying to debate it. Right? His thing is every Sunday. You take the manila, it was like one of them, I don't know if like back in the days they just sell a weed at them. Anyway, it was like these little small manila envelopes, right? You get the big ones, but these are the small ones. And what I had to do was give them $100 every Sunday. I felt like it was a shakedown. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, nah, man, I'm not giving these people no goddamn money. You know what I'm saying? He was like, yo, listen, you're gonna give these people this money. You know what I'm saying? And you're gonna avoid having problem in this community. And once he said that, I caught it. But until he said that part, everything else was, him just telling me, like, he's the man. You gonna do this. I'm like, nah, man. You know what I'm saying? I'm one of them people like, listen, man, you ain't gonna get me to just do whatever, you know what I'm saying? And because we had multiple of these type of conversations, you know what I mean? He just was, he always respected me, you know what I'm saying? In that sense of like, nah, he, Juice is, this type of dude, you know what I'm saying? And so his approach was that way, like just do this and this is why. Once he said the why, it clicked. And from that, not only did it change my approach to community and how you deal with community, but like I said, it also changed my defense for the young kids within that neighborhood who were kind of giving, Danny a problem. Is my boy, you know what I'm saying? So but me, I'm American. You know what I'm saying? My family is West Indian. So a lot of the American kids would be like, I don't even know why you hanging out with them. You're not even Jamaican. You know what I'm saying? And I'd be like, all right, if that's what you think, you know what I mean? So I was always able to be on both sides. Instead of saying like this English accent, American accent, makes me always around, American people, right? But a lot of people do not know that my family is Haitian, Jamaican, and Cuban. You know what I'm saying? So, I always, knew just enough of anything, just to be aware of stuff. I might not be fluent in Spanish, but I know enough, for me to be good. You know what I mean? Same thing with, patois and, Creole. Well, Creole was actually my least, you know what I'm saying, understood, even though my son, is Haitian, through his mother's side. You know what I mean? So I always knew how to cater to all of them. I wasn't biased. You know what I'm saying? I grew up in a household where, people was talk shit like American nigga this, American, they West Indian. So, that's how they, felt about American people. You know what I mean? And me being American, I always, was insulted just like any other American who would hear that shit. So I would be beefing, indirectly with my pops because my grandmother never talked like that. You know what I'm saying? But my father did. You know what I'm saying? American, but Americanness. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, yeah, but you. I don't know what it is today. I don't know what it is. But anyway, or maybe it's hot. Fires are breaking out, whatever. But anyway, like so I said, me being, multicultural and having, a fondness for Caribbeans, but I'm American. You know what I'm saying? So I have a fondness because it's in my household. You know what I mean? Like not liking Caribbean people would be foolish considering that, I'm raised by that. But I'm American. So I would be insulted at the same time. So with that being said, is like I said, I hung out with. I had times where I hang out with I had a whole Spanish crew. You know what I'm saying? I had a whole, West Indian side and always ran with Americans. You know what I'm saying? I never really knew whole groups of Haitian people. I knew Haitians in pockets, you know what I mean? But never this whole community, where, like say, um, like Queens or something, or Brooklyn or somewhere where it was just like this whole community of Haitian people, and I was in that circle. I can't never say that. I've been in whole circles with a whole damn community. You would think you was in Jamaica and shit. You know what I'm saying? So with that is what I'm saying is these are the type of lessons that I understood. Pay your debt. You know what I'm saying? And make yourself presentable in that way. You know what I'm saying? So I'm saying that, like I said, in regards to, the what we was just reading, you know what I'm saying, and how, King James, was giving it up, you know what I'm saying, as far as paying your dues. You know what I mean? Paying an X amount of dues to make everything go smooth. You know. So me, like I said, I studied this, you know what I mean? I study these people and I go, you know what I mean? This is what it is. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna end this soon. And like I said, at this point I'm just giving you some jewels, and I'm being cautious on what I say. I don't not because anything. Statute of limitations on anything that I've ever done. It's all well done in past. You know what I mean? So anything that I'm saying now is really just the precaution of what I'm saying is I don't want to promote anything without a full understanding. You know what I mean? I let other people who think they know me tell you, oh yeah, he was doing it. No, I didn't. None of these people ran with me. Let's get that shit straight. They hung out with me, and my regular life. You know what I'm saying? When I'm not grinding and knows. But none of these people can ever say I even asked them to ride with me. And I know people who was doing crime, and I just knew I would never ask them to come with me and do a crime. But they would act like, they know me like that. They don't know me like that. They know me through perception. Like if I come around you and I'm telling you these things. So your perception, you make up the image in your head. You know what I mean? They making an image in their head of what they know about me based off what I say, but never understanding. Like it's like, okay, you got an impression of the street, right? And you know somebody who can get around in the street. So you would assume that everything that you know over there about the streets apply to the person who can maneuver through the streets. If that makes sense. So you gain this understanding of a person based on an environment. That's profiling. And so with that is why I don't fuck with people. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people, when I went to jail, was backbiting me, and and a way that I felt was extremely disrespectful, considering that what I went to jail for. You understand what I'm saying? So for me, it was here it is. You couldn't even honor my name in a proper way. You threw dirt on it. You know what I'm saying? And then apologize. Oh, I didn't know that. Well, why was you talking like that? Why did you put that out there if you didn't know that? That's how I feel about things. You know what I mean? So me, I learned how to separate myself from people because they don't know and they don't bother to ask and learn. See, me, I knew what I was talking about Freemasonry. I knew what I was talking about, the system and how they setting you up. I knew these things, but nobody wanted to hear it. So I said, you know what? Here go YouTube, Twitch, and all of these, streaming platforms. Somebody else out there who truly wants to understand Well, you can't just. It's like if you were a musician. Just because you grew up around people and everybody is the person that you friends with ain't necessarily gonna like music. You see what I'm saying? They might like mechanics. Might like cars. So you can't assume just because the people want to know what you know. So to the people that I knew, they considered me crazy. He got something against white people. Oh, he act like he too good and no. Here go a history that I tried to give you. You did not want it. Right? You rather believe that I'm doing something and I'm not even there for the financial gain. I wasn't in the streets for the financial gain. Nah, I was in there to see a certain style of people. You got to remember, I came into the streets. Pardon me. I came into the streets when pro blackness, the public enemies, and all of that was relevant. So when Roots was on TV and shit like that, and I told you I know the Central Park. Two of the Central Park joggers. One of them, we actually was in school together, me and Corey Wise. Um, so my experience from the first part of my life was on that. It was never against my people. My people had a problem with me because I didn't want to, wear the freshest clothes and that type of shit. Like I didn't buy in to whiteness through the black community. Judging you off of what you got that's white. You know what I mean? Do you got these labels on? Do you like? I didn't care about none of that. That shit was like irrelevant to me. You know what I mean? So even when I was getting money, dudes had to tell me, "Yo, why don't you go buy us this? Why don't you go?" And I'm like, "All right," but I had no interest in that. My interest was in the military aspect of our people. Through time, I lost like a faith in our people. And I went, in that direction, but I never totally abandoned it. So like yeah, there is a point in my life where, I was, you know, doing things on our people and I get into that, you know what I mean? And in kind of a justifiable way, kinda. I'm not gonna act like I'm that is justifiable. You know what I mean? But I will, give explanations that might, open that up. So, like I said, on the next show we will be doing, since we closed out on King James and the straight. Now we're gonna go down the paths of King James, right? So once we clear that up, everything. So we're gonna do the 30-year war next, right? That's what we'll be covering, and we'll be covering some of these other little pieces in here later, but the 30-year war is going to take probably like two series. It should be done in like two series. All right. Peace, people. Don't forget resistance, resistance, resistance. We out of here. Till next time.